Hello everyone, welcome for the course Electrical Designing and Drafting. If you are a beginner or experienced who wants to understand and enhance a skill in the area of electrical right from the scratch, then this course is meant especially for you. So before starting the course, we have to understand the basics of electrical engineering and the basics of electrical designing. So here, what is mean by electrical? Electrical is nothing but the study of electricity and electronics. Designing means we are going to work with calculations, especially with respect to the commercial, residential, or any domestic based projects. What is meant by drafting? So drafting is nothing but the outline sketch which we are going to frame. So this course has been divided into 6 modules or 6 parts. So in the first part, we are going to understand about the basics of electrical engineering. So you can see in the first chapter, we are going to understand the basic concepts of electrical designing, especially in the area of MEP. Okay, so what we are going to understand in the basics, we are going to understand some basic terms like what is meant by voltage, what is meant by current, what is meant by conductor, what is meant by insulator. All these things, the basic concepts we are going to understand over here. In the next, you can see the basics of electrical engineering. Okay, so in the basics of electrical engineering, we are going to understand some theorems. Okay, like what is mean by electron theory. Okay, what are the different types of loads we have, and how we are going to classify the voltage as well as electricity. Because when you talk about electrical loads, it has been classified into 3 types. First one is nothing but the resistive load, the inductive load, and the capacitive loads. When you talk about the classification of voltage levels in electrical distribution system, the voltage has been classified into 5 to 6 different levels based upon the capacity, based upon the demand. And when you talk about the classification of electricity, means in terms of generation, in terms of distribution. As you can see that electricity we are going to generate with different sources. Like we have a hydro plant, diesel plant. Okay, we have different renewable energy sources also. So whatever the amount of energy which we have generated, that we are going to transmit by means of AC line, by means of DC line, or I can say as high voltage alternate current line or high voltage direct current line. So all the basic concepts of electrical engineering we are going to understand in the chapter 1. Next, you can see about the chapter 2. So in the chapter 2, we are going to understand the basic concepts of power. What is mean by power? In simple words, I can say that power is nothing but product of voltage and current. So here in electrical systems and designing, the power has been classified into 3 types. The first one is nothing but active power, and the apparent power, and the reactive power. So what is mean by active power? The active power can also be called as a true power or a real power. Different people are giving different names and terms over here, but at last I can conclude that everything means the same over here. Next, apparent power. Okay, whatever the power which we are getting, that is actually the apparent power. We have the last nothing but reactive power. That means whatever the power which is helping us to boost up the supply, that will be your reactive power. Okay, so with respect to these basic formulas, we are going to find out the amount of current, the amount of power in terms of kilowatt, in terms of kVA. So this is very important fundamental concept. Next, talking about calculation of current by using thumb rule. Remember that in the complete course, we are going to work with general calculations, okay, as well as the thumb rule calculation also. General calculation means following the literatures and the manufacturing data, whereas thumb rule is nothing but the shortcut method to crack the interviews, I can say, or for the quick answers. In the next chapter 3, okay, this is totally theoretical based, where we are going to understand the abbreviations and synopsis. So here in this topic, we are going to understand the different electrical equipments, like different distribution boards, what we have, different circuit breakers we have, different electrical small equipments or the components, etc. Again, talking about codes and standards. In electrical systems, we have some specific codes, like we have the NEC, we have IEC, we have IEEE. Same like that in the mechanical area, we have like ASHRAE, ISHRAE, SMACNA, etc. Again, when you talk about the plumbing and firefighting, there also we have some more standards. Okay, like we have the PHE and etc. In the next topic, here you can see we have got the lux level standards. What is meant by lux? Lux is actually the amount of brightness which we require in the room. So based upon the lux level only, we are going to find out the number of lamps or number of lighting fixtures. Again, you can see we have got the load details for different electrical equipments. When you talk about electrical designing and drafting, the first thing for any electrical engineer is to find out the total connected load in terms of kilowatt or in terms of kVA. So one can able to find out the total connected load if he is aware with the power consumption with different electrical equipments. Again, you can see we have got the basic concepts of electrical engineering, how to save electrical power. Okay, like for example, when I'm going to select any device, so we have got different devices in the market. Out of all those devices, which is very efficient, okay, which is very satisfactory for me, so those things we are going to discuss in the last topic. Okay, so these are the three chapters what we have with respect to the first part, with the first module. Okay, so if you are from non-electrical background, like if you are from mechanical background, or even if you are from architect, interior designer, or anyone, no need to worry, because we are coming from the scratch to the higher level. I hope we'll meet in the next phase with respect to the part 2. Thank you for watching the video. Take care. Welcome for the next part of the course Electrical Designing and Drafting. So in the previous part, we have seen the basics of electrical engineering and the basic concepts of designing. So now in this part, we are going to understand what is meant by illumination in the chapter 4. Okay, what is meant by illumination, or I can say what is meant by lighting. Basically, in the field of electrical engineering, lighting plays a major role, because with the help of lighting only, we are going to provide the aesthetic appeal in the project. So this illumination design has been classified into different areas. Like you can see the lighting fixtures, we are going to classify in terms of internal area, in terms of exterior area. Okay, so how to find out the number of lighting fixtures with the help of interior area, and how to find out the lighting fixtures with the help of exterior area. Next, you can see when you talk about the interior lights, we have got some classifications. Like you can see, we have got the incandescent lamp, we have got the compact fluorescent lamp, we have got the fluorescent lamps, and we have got the LED. Whereas when you talk about the external lights, that means what? The lights which we are going to place at the exterior side of the building. Like we have got the sodium maple lamp, or you can say it as halogen bulb. Okay, or we have the LED lights also. Again, talking about the lighting lux level range. So this is again the same topic which we are going to proceed from the chapter 3. Okay, based upon the lux values, we are going to define the lighting fixtures assuming the lumen output of the lamp. Again, you can see we have the air conditioning system. So in this air conditioning system, we are going to understand what is meant by air conditioning. Okay, how many different types of ACs we have. Basically, being from electrical background, we are not going to deal majorly with air conditioning system. So if you're working with small projects, then it will be your scope. So you should have some basic concepts of the split AC as well as the window AC. Next, you can see in the chapter 5, we have got the basic concepts of cable. So what is mean by cable? What are the different parts we have in the cable? Okay, how we are going to select the insulation of the cable, on what parameters we are going to select the conductor of the cable. And after proceeding with all this theoretical part, we are going to understand the calculation. So the calculation with chapter 5 is with the thumb rule, means the shortcut method to find out the cable size. So if you are clear with the shortcut method, then when we go with the chapter 13, okay, at that point of view, it will be very easy for you to understand the cable size. So this chapter 5 will give you the overall outline for the complete electrical cables. Next, we have got the chapter 6. In this chapter 6, we are going to understand about circuit breakers. As we know that circuit breaker is a main device which helps it to provide the safety. Okay, safety in case of short circuits or in case of overloads, I can say. So in electrical systems, the circuit breakers has been classified into 5 or 6 types. Like we have got miniature circuit breaker, moderate case circuit breaker, vacuum circuit breaker, sulfur hexafluoride circuit breaker, and etc. Again, before going to select the circuit breaker, we have to understand all the parameters and specification. Okay, like how much amount of insulation level we have, which type of category or which class we have, all those things we are going to understand. Again, we are going to work with calculation of circuit breaker. Remember that in this chapter, with the calculation of circuit breaker, I cannot say that okay, the sizing has been done, because along with circuit breaker sizing, we have to calculate few more parameters like the breaking capacity, the short circuit level. So those things we are going to discuss in the future modules, in the future parts. Next, we have the chapter 5. Next we have the chapter 7. So in the chapter 7, we are going to understand the basics of capacitor bank. Okay, so what is the main why there is a main requirement of capacitor bank? Remember that when the mechanical load is more in the project, definitely there will be a demand of reactive power. So this reactive power is given by means of capacitor banks. So what is the main benefit we get when we are going to connect capacitor bank? How it will help you to enhance the power factor value? As we know that power factor is a main picture by means of which we are going to design all the electrical equipments. So what are the benefits we have when we are going to connect the power factor? In simple words, I can say that we have a benefit in terms of economical, in terms of technical point of view. Next, talking about the capacitor bank sizing. Based upon the enhanced value of the power factor, we are going to calculate the size of capacitor bank. At last, with this chapter, we can see we have got electrical machines. So in electrical machines, we are going to understand some theoretical parts and the principle. Again, we are going to understand about the starters as well as the drives and different relays. So all these 7 chapters will give you the brief basic concepts for the electrical designing. In the next part, we shall go with the main calculations for electrical designing and drafting. See you in the next part, part 3. Thank you. Welcome for the next part of the course Electrical Designing and Drafting. So this is a part 3 where we are going to understand about electrical designing. So in the chapter 8 of the course, we are going to understand the main calculations of electrical designing and drafting. So in the first topic of this chapter, we shall see the rules and regulations from the NAC and the NBC standards. Okay, how many number of points we have to select, what type of circuit breaker we have to select, and what size of cable we have to select. Okay, so before going for the calculations, referring your architectural layout, we need to understand about the imperial system and the metric system, because different consultants are using different formats. But in electrical systems, 90% of the calculations will be in metric systems. So if you are getting any architectural layout in terms of imperial system, so we should know how to convert from imperial to the metric system. Again, after conversion, we are going to work with lighting design. Remember that lighting calculation is a very vast calculation. So if you are covering this calculation initially, it will be very easy for the future calculations to be proceeded. So after completion of lighting design, we are going with raw power designing. In the raw power designing, we are going to connect, or we are going to design all the heavy loads or the appliances which we are going to use in day-to-day life. Again, talking about air conditioning system. I repeat again, air conditioning is not a concept of electrical engineer, but if you're working with small projects or any kind of domestic projects, we are going to work with the split AC as well as the window AC. Okay, after completion of all this designing, we are going to understand about the load balancing sheet or the DB schedule. Okay, this is very important concept, because in the load balancing sheet, we are going to understand whether we need a 3-phase supply or a single phase supply, how many circuits we are going to frame, what type of main circuit breaker we have to use, and how we have to balance the load, and how we have to maintain a phase difference less than 300 watts or less than 5% of the total connected load. After completion of chapter 8, we are going with chapter 9. So in the chapter 9, we are going to understand about transformer. If you are from electrical background, then you'll be very clear with the topic of transformer and the parts of transformer. Especially for the non-electrical people, okay, we have to be very clear with the components and the parts of transformer. Transformer works on which principle, okay, how we are going to troubleshoot the transformer if you have any kind of maintenance issue, and how we are going to provide the connections to the transformer. So these are the few major topics which we are going to cover in the introduction to the transformer. After completion of the theoretical part, we are going with calculations. So here from this chapter, whenever we are going to start any designing, okay, or whenever we are going to work with any calculation area, the first thing we are going to understand about the part as well as the equipment. Okay, so the transformer sizing is very simple, but remember that parameter selections are very important. So with respect to some 10 steps of calculations, we are going to design and we are going to justify the equipment, nothing but transformer. In next chapter, the chapter 10, we are going to understand about diesel generator. Okay, diesel is actually a fuel. Okay, with the help of this fuel, we are going to generate electricity. So first of all, we are going to understand the components and the parts of generator. In which case we are going to use a generator. Because when you're working with any project, the first thing is to distribute and to define the different types of loads. Like you can see, we have the total connected load. Out of total connected load, we are going to see, okay, how much amount of emergency loads we have. Again, based upon that, we are going to find out the demand factors and the diversity factors. So all those parameters we are going to understand initially. After completion of this theoretical part, we shall go with the calculation of generator. So in this topic, I am going to assume few loads with one of my previous projects. So once when you design, again, we are going to cross verify by means of justification process. After completion of this chapter, we shall go with chapter 11. In this chapter, we are going to understand about the UPS system, uninterruptible power supply. When you are working with commercial projects or when you are working with corporate offices or any hospitals, definitely we have to provide alternate source of supply. Okay, we have basically two sources of supply in every project. Like we have a transformer supply, we have a generator supply. But when you're working with sensitive devices, like something like medical equipments or any kind of IT sectors, so definitely we have to provide the UPS system also, because the sensitive devices, okay, will not tolerate even if there is any kind of interruption, even for a fraction of a second. So as a design engineer, it will be our responsibility to calculate the size of UPS. So before going for the calculation, first we shall go with the introduction part, where we are going to understand the parts of UPS system and the block diagram of UPS system. After completion of theoretical part, we shall go with calculation of UPS and the calculation of battery sizing based upon the backup power. Because in the battery sizing, we have got two areas. One is with respect to the maintenance battery and one is with respect to the dry battery. So as per the client interest as well as the type of project, we are going to choose the type of battery. Okay, so these are the four chapters where we are going to understand the main thing of electrical designing and drafting. So with respect to this module, it is clear. I hope so. We shall go with next module. Thank you for watching the video. Welcome for the next part of the course, electrical designing and drafting. So in the previous part, we have seen the basic calculation of lighting as well as the raw power schedules and the transformer, generator, and the UPS sizing. In this part, we shall understand about the cable sizing. So in the chapter 12, you can see we are going to define the cable size. So what is meant by cable and the thumb rule for the cable sizing, we have already understood in the previous part. So in this chapter, we are going to refer some manufacturing data with different areas. Based upon that, we are going to find out the cable size. Cable sizing is a very lengthy calculation. So we have to define different parameters like resistance, reactance, impedance, and multiple things. So once when you have defined the cable sizing, after completion of that, we shall go with the second step of calculation in the same cable sizing, which is called as voltage drop. Okay, why it is necessary to go with voltage drop? Remember that whatever the amount of voltage which you are sending, it is not compulsory that the same amount of voltage you will receive. So there can be a drop because of internal losses or any kind of exterior losses also. So in this voltage drop, we are going to find out the percentage value, okay, for the high tension side as well as for the low tension side. Next, in the chapter 3, the same cable sizing, we are going to proceed with short circuit calculation. This is a very vast calculation and very deep calculation. So what is meant by short circuit? You have to understand this first. Short circuit is nothing but excessive amount of current which can enter into the system to damage your equipment. So always a short circuit value will be in terms of kiloampere. After completion of calculation of circuit breaker sizing, we have to go with the short circuit calculation also, because this is one of the additional parameter of your circuit breaker. Once when you have done with this, based upon the short circuit results, we are going to find out the tripping time. In how much amount of time the circuit breaker has to trip and isolate, like something like 1 second, 0.1 second, or less than 3 seconds, or etc. So all those things we are going to work with chapter 3. So once when we have done with these 3 additional topics, irrespective to the cable size like voltage drop, short circuit, and tripping, based upon these results only we can able to justify the cable size. After completion of this, we are going with chapter 14. In this chapter, we are going to understand the four basic concepts of cable trays, earthing, busbar, and lightning arrestor. The calculation of cable tray is very simple, but installation and execution is very complex because we have to coordinate with other services. Next, talking about earthing. Earthing is very important area in electrical designing. If you're not going to satisfy the earthing, then you will never get any kind of approvals, okay, to lease out the area or to be in the area. Next, talking about the bus bar. Bus bar is actually the conductor which carries generally heavy amount of current, and this will be uninsulated. Next, talking about the lightning arrestor. Okay, so lightning arrestor is actually required when you're working with any kind of high-rise buildings, or even you're working with high-rise projects, or when you're working with, okay, petrol bunks, bus stands, or railway stations, or etc. So in this area, we are going to place the lightning arrestors. All these lightning arrestors are connected to separate earthing pits. So all the four topics we are going to cover in the chapter 14. In the chapter 15, we are going to cover about the CCTV system and the public address system. As you can see nowadays, almost in every project, there is a requirement of CCTV for the security and the surveillance point of view. So in this topic, we are going to understand some basics of CCTV, different cameras, what we are having, and difference between the NVR, DVR, etc. Again, talking about the public address system. So public address system, basically we have three components, like we have a microphone, we have an amplifier, and we have a speaker. So these three things we are going to understand in the public address system. Thank you for watching the video. Welcome for the course Electrical Designing and Drafting for the part 5. So in the previous parts, we have understood about electrical designing, okay, and the basics of electrical engineering. Now in this part, we are going to understand some simulation softwares and applications. The first thing regarding the lighting. So for the lighting point of view, we are going to use a dialect software of 4.13 version, which is the latest version available in the market. So via this software, we are going to understand the number of lighting fixtures using the lux levels, which we have already discussed in the chapter 3 of the first module. Okay, after applying the lux, after getting the number of lighting fixtures, we are going to check the positions as well as the material effects also, because when you apply the material effect, exact quantity of lighting fixtures you can able to find out, because in the lighting calculations we have got one parameter called as CUF, nothing but coefficient of utilization factor. So via this factor we can able to understand that how much amount of light is going to be absorbed and how much amount of light is going to be reflected. So based upon that, we can exactly find out the number of lighting fixtures. After getting the lighting fixtures, we are going to import and export the same dialects file into the AutoCAD file, and we are going to generate the photometric data and the report. So once when you export the AutoCAD file, it will be very easy for you to go with control wiring via the load balancing sheet. So this is the main concepts which we are going to cover with dialects. And next, after completion of dialect lighting software, we have got one more simulation software, which is called as the ETAB. So for the ETAB, we are going with ETAB 12.6 version. And before going for the software, we have to understand some introduction and the theoretical part for the ETAB, as well as how to understand and how to manage the screen. Okay, once when you know that what are the things we have on the screen, it will be very easy for you to understand about the ETAB. So we are covering two concepts in the ETAB. One is the load flow analysis and the short circuit analysis. So first of all, we have to make a single line diagram or a one line diagram. Via that single line diagram or the one line diagram, we are going to find out the short circuit in terms of Ka as well as the load flow analysis. So this is the topic what we are covering with the ETAB. Next, talking about electrical project. So after completion of this course, okay, we are going to understand one project. We are going to briefly understand, okay, about a residential building for the G+6 floors, ground floor plus 6 story. So for the same project, we have a single line diagram where we will understand how actually we are going to distribute the supply from the main distribution board, from the sub-main distribution board to the distribution board to the lighting switch boards. Okay, so single line diagram will give you the complete outline for the project. After this, we are going to see the load balancing sheets. Okay, because when you have the load balancing sheets only, we can able to go with control wiring. And how to place the lighting fixtures, raw power fixtures in the air conditioning system, what is the correct position, how we have to mount, and what will be the mounting height, etc. All those things are elaborated in this project. After completion of your fixtures, placement of fixtures, we are going with control wiring and the circuit wiring. Okay, why the control wiring, circuit wiring? We can able to execute the same concepts at site. Again, we have got the conduit layout also. As you can see, as per the international standards, we have to go with different conduits for different areas. Like for the lighting, the color is different, the size is different. For the raw power, the color is different, the size is different. Same thing for the security, for the firefighting, for the air conditioning system. So all these concepts are briefly discussed in this residential building for G+6 floors. Once when you're clear with these projects, by default, automatically you'll be getting the skill for the complete electrical designing and drafting, because in these projects, we have covered from the basic to the higher level. I hope these three concepts will be very clear with this chapter and the part. Thank you for watching my video. Welcome for the next part of the course, Electrical Designing and Drafting. So this shall be the last part of the course, nothing but the chapter part 6. Okay, so in the previous parts, we have understood about basics of electrical engineering, as well as the designing and the simulation softwares and the applications. So in this chapter, we shall understand about electrical drafting. So for the electrical drafting, we are going to use a software called as AutoCAD. The basic minimum software version, which I recommend, is 2012. And the latest version, which is available right now in the market, is 2022, or in the future, you may expect few more versions. So via this AutoCAD software, we are going to work for the complete electrical drafting. So before starting up the course, AutoCAD, we have to understand the basics of AutoCAD and the structure of AutoCAD. Okay, so in the first part, we are going to understand the introduction. Okay, so when was AutoCAD developed and how, in what way we are going to use for the electrical area. Once when you complete the introduction part, as well as the things or the templates what we have on the screen, then we shall go with the objectives and the limitations. So these objectives and limitations will define the advantages as well as the disadvantages. As well as when you cover with the AutoCAD part, we shall go with some basic settings also. Okay, so once when you define the settings, then again we are going to work with commands. So in the AutoCAD, the commands are classified into two areas. One is the drawing command and the modify command. Okay, so we are going to cover almost 60 commands for the complete course of electrical drafting, where the 60 commands one can able to work for electrical drafting. So when you go with electrical drafting, first thing is to find out or to work with electrical legends. So we are going to place and we are going to make some electrical legends. So once when you work with these legends, okay, we are going to place on any architectural layout. Okay, this architectural layout you'll be receiving from the architect department or your civil department, or your client will provide you. So once when you have the architectural layout with you, you are going to work with lighting layout, the raw power layout, as well as the air conditioning layout. So in this lighting, the first thing what we are going to do, we are going to place the lighting fixtures. Again, we are going to work with conduit. Again, we are going to work with control wiring or the circuit wiring. The same thing we shall go with the raw power as well as the air conditioning system. For the raw power also, we have to place the conduits and the control and the circuit wiring. For the air conditioning also, once when you place the fixtures, we are going to use a separate conduit as well as the control wiring and the circuit wiring. Once when you place all the fixtures, we are going with the single line diagrams. Okay, so this single line diagram will help you to understand the complete outline and the scope of project. So all these basic concepts we are going to cover in this AutoCAD. Okay, with this electrical drafting, okay, one can able to understand, one can able to execute the same thing on the side. So I hope it's very clear regarding the electrical drafting. So thank you for watching my video.